Hello everyone, how are you doing today? I'm Makeda Valletta, also known as the Body Scientist, and in case you're unfamiliar with me, I have a background in exercise and sports science and nutrition science, okay? And, well, that's what my degrees are in, but I also had a background in biotechnology prior to that. So I'm a science nerd, but specifically as it pertains to the body and our health, okay? I started off as a biotechnology major wanting to research cures for genetic diseases, okay? So genetics and genetic diseases is a huge interest of mine, as is microbes and infectious diseases. Those are two things that I've really been into since the 90s. And then I got into exercise science and sports science and nutrition science. And I've committed my life to studying all the ways that we can take our body to its highest levels, right? And so today I want to do a conversation about indigenous science versus Western science, okay? I think this is a very important conversation because I do have a background in Western science. There is some validity in that. I'm thankful to have that background. But I definitely don't think that indigenous science should be ignored. I think that if you really want the truth and the wisdom, you have to go to indigenous science. The only thing is that nowadays a lot of people try to rewrite the story. A lot of people are not good researchers. A lot of people do not have good critical thinking skills. And a lot of people make shit up that's not true, okay? For example, you have a lot of black people, specifically in America, okay, who say that we were always vegans and our African ancestors were vegans, even though, let me say, that black people in America are just as much native, just as much indigenous blood, okay, Aborigine, copper-complected blood from this land as we do African. Some of us are barely have any African blood, but we definitely have a lot of blood from this land, okay? So whatever, people will say that Africans were vegans and didn't eat meat. That's not true, okay? It's not that hard to do research on that, because if you even speak to Africans, okay, I have a lot of African friends and ones who grew up there. They definitely grew up eating all kinds of organs and eyeballs and things that, you know, people here shun their face up at, okay? But all traditional people around the world ate organ meats, okay? That's something you found. I don't care if you are looking at then people who are indigenous to South America, to the Caribbean, to North America, to Australia, to the Polynesian Islands, to Asia, to Europe. Everybody ate organ meats, okay? Period, point blank. Nobody was sitting around eating salad. If you go to somebody's grandmother's house in Korea, in Japan, in Spain, in France, on the Hawaiian Islands, in the African village somewhere in the Congo or Nigeria, they're not going to give you salad, okay? They're not going to give you salad, all right? Salad is a new age food that people think they need to eat to be healthy. You look at the Ethiopians, like for example, you have Rastas who talking about the ITAL diet and they love Ethiopia so much, but you know what? Ethiopians eat raw beef. Ethiopians are not vegans. If you really, but in Jamaica, in the Americas, they start trying to rewrite stuff about Africans. That's what I'm saying. Ethiopians eat raw beef. They are not vegans. Okay? So people like to rewrite things, and this is why Western science, too, can play its role with backing up certain things. Because some people just start making up stuff. But also history and anthropology. I'm also somebody who studies history and anthropology. Another thing about me is I'm also a dancer and former athlete, but the reason why I mentioned the dancing is because I'm a serious student of dances of the African diaspora in the Americas, okay? Afro-Indigenous is what I like to say, dances in the Americas. So that's stuff from Colombia, from Peru, Venezuela, from Puerto Rico, from Cuba, from Haiti, from DR, from New Orleans, from New York, from Chicago. You know, black dances, Afro-Indigenous dances from the Americas. And that has also, I don't study African dance so much, but I do a little bit because it's crossbred with our stuff. So when you're studying stuff from Cuba, or you're studying stuff from Haiti, or you're studying stuff from Colombia, you're going to, you know, see things in the Congo, right? Like I do study Congolese dance. The Congo had the greatest influence on black dance in the Americas, right? But then there might be stuff from Dahomey. maybe stuff from Benin, from the Yoruba, from the Igbo. You know what I'm saying? So I dabble in that a little bit too, more so the Congo more than anything. But when you study these dances, all right, you have spiritual dances, you have social dances, and I use the dancing to keep my mind and body on point, okay? Because as a strength and conditioning coach, my job is to look at the most efficient exercises for performance, for human performance, to increase performance and decrease injury. So I don't just go do any old exercises. Some people just be doing any old exercises in the gym. Like there's 20 exercises you can do for your abs. All of them aren't the most beneficial in terms of performance, right? So black dance, if you want to age slowly and you want to have a real strong mind-body connection and you want to participate in something that's healing and transforms energy, shakes off trauma, black dance, okay? So, but when you study these things, there are social dances and there are spiritual dances. And when you look at the spiritual dances that are linked to deities and stuff like that, you know what you find? That, thank you, Uptime Birthkeeper. Like I try not to, sometimes I want to curse people out, but then it takes me off of my topic. But what you find is that every group of people had a deity that was associated with hunting. Okay, hunting was a spiritual thing. I remember going to a peyote ceremony in Texas, in San Antonio, back in like 2006 or something like that. I can't remember if he was Apache. I can't remember what tribe he was, but I remember he told me, like, you know, and I had read about peyote in this book, that and how women, you know, in Mexico consumed it when they were pregnant and stuff like that. And what he said to me was, when you go to this ceremony and you're consuming this, they're going to pass this around. You know, you might think you're getting sick, but we call it getting well. So if you feel like you have to throw up or something, throw up and keep on going. Keep on consuming it, because that's your body letting go of anything that's poisonous. You know what I'm saying? That could be in your body, in your spiritual realm, whatever. And we had to sit there in front of the fire all night. Okay, couldn't move unless you had to go to the bathroom. Couldn't have your feet facing the fire. So there's specific ways you had to sit. And the next morning, they passed around deer to eat that one of the chiefs had hunted the day before. And that is considered, it was a spiritual ceremony. It was a spiritual thing. You couldn't go there and be like, oh, I'm a vegan, I don't eat deer. So really, the people who are talking all this vegan stuff for spiritual reasons are disconnected from indigenous practices. The ones who say it for health reasons are disconnected from indigenous practices too. So one thing I'm going to say to you is that Western science hasn't confirmed anything that indigenous people didn't already know. And Western scientists always try to say, like with cannabis, you guys have heard me talking about cannabis medicine a lot lately, and I'm going to keep on doing it, right? But they'll be like, oh, we need more research, and we don't know this, and we don't know that, and blah, 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 and you know what? But you know, and then they say that anecdotal evidence, you know, that doesn't really count for anything, but it does though. Especially when you have anecdotal evidence over generations. If it's something like when people go on a vegan diet and they're eating lettuce all day long, okay, and they tell me they feel great, that doesn't mean anything to me. Because I'm like, you've been doing that for a few years. Can you do that? Have you been doing that for generations? Show me some people who've been eating lettuce and sprouts on this rabbit diet, okay, this goat food diet for generations, who have produced healthy populations over generations, who were having 10 kids. Because, you know, just a couple generations ago, women were having 10 babies like it was nothing. One of my best friends in Chicago, her mother had 13 kids. And I mean, like, my friend is like 2 years younger than me, okay? So she's in her late 30s. And she's the oldest, okay? Her mother's in her 50s. Her mother didn't have like 13 kids, all vaginally. And her mother eats tons of pork. People were telling her when she was pregnant with her daughters, she shouldn't eat pork. She's like, my mom ate pork every day. She had all these, you know what I'm saying? So show me where, when something has been shown to work over generations, over hundreds of years, over thousands of years, that counts for way more evidence than a study that a scientist did over a few years, okay? So in that case, I do think that anecdotal evidence and stories matters for a lot, okay? But then, you know, you have to measure things. Western science is is limited to what we can measure, what we can see, what we can observe, what we can measure. And that has its place, but it's limited. Because there are things that we will never understand, right? And when you're talking about plant medicine, okay, true herbalists, true indigenous herbalists can communicate with plants, all right? And I remember reading this in books, and then I remember being around one of the herbalists and one of the people who I highly respect in this world. Every time I think about her, I just start to laugh. A woman named Pankazani, I will always give her props. Her name on here is Indigimama, okay? She's the truth for so many reasons. I could do a whole video about her. But I remember being around her in Costa Rica years ago, teaching a workshop. And, there was this, this Italian woman who was from New York who had moved there. And she was trying to give us a lecture on the herbs on her land and what they're for. And, a lot of everybody that was there was Afro-Indigenous from the Americas. They were from Jamaica, they were from Mexico, they were from the American South. And they had their own stories about these herbs. But this woman didn't want to listen, because I'm not saying all white people are like this. I'm not. But there are a lot of white people who have this kind of like authoritarian, like if they didn't put the stamp on it, then it's not valid type thing. And I remember Pankazani telling me that day, there were certain plants in her yard that was good for the uterus and good for this and good for that. And because these plants were communicating with her, I have watched her work with so many women, and the way that she works with, it's like one person, she might beat them with the herbs. Another person, she might tell them to drink a tea or steam with the herbs. And I've had that same experience in dealing with people who practice African herbalism. You start to see similar practices amongst people around the world. Like vaginal steaming with herbs is something that many cultures did. Okay. But so when you see an herbalist who's like selling pills, okay, like Sabi, all right, some of you call him Dr. Sabi. I refuse to say that because he was not a true herbalist, all right. But no true herbalist sells one size fits all bottles of pills, okay. Like, oh, you need to detox your liver, take these pills, the herbs I put together, no, true herbalist. They have to customize that to the individual. You use herbs differently depending on what you're using it for. Just like with cannabis medicine. There are many people that I work with different ailments who are using cannabis, and I speak to them and give to titrate it and have them use it in the way that works best for them for what they're using it for. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing. All right? With Western medicine and pharmaceuticals, I remember learning this when I was in college. You know what I'm saying? I told you I have a background in biotechnology as well. And we were learning about how, all these Western scientists would go to the Amazon. They go to wherever indigenous people are, Africa, the Amazon, whatever. Find out what these people have been using for generations for this problem or that problem, okay? And then they will isolate the active compound, okay? And they make it into a pill. And then so most of the pharmaceuticals that were prescribed, they come from natural herbs. But the problem is that everything in the plant is supposed to work together. So when you so-called isolate this active compound and you put it by itself, it causes a bunch of problems because everything else that's in that plant is meant to be there to help that so-called active compound work properly and be balanced. It's called metabolism. Right? This is the reason why I do not ever recommend that somebody just buy vitamin pills. Like people go, oh, I'm buying vitamin D, or I'm buying vitamin B12, or I'm buying vitamin C. Vitamins don't work by themselves. That's number one, okay? So you can cause serious taking vitamin pills is like taking pharmaceutical medications, okay? And if you follow my work, I'm always saying the drug companies and the food companies are the same people. They want to convince you that natural herbs are scary and we don't know if they work and it's hocus pocus. But they got all the pharmaceuticals from that. It's a watered down version that actually causes a bunch of side effects and prevents you from healing, causes addiction and all kinds of other problems. Then you're taking other medications and stuff like that for the side effects from this medication. Same thing is true with nutrition, okay? They convince you that, raw milk and eggs and butter and organ meats and things that people have been eating for thousands of freaking years is bad for you and going to give you a heart attack and kill you. But you know what? They make fake milk and they make nut milk and they make rice milk and they make fake meat and all this fake shit and convince you that the real shit is bad for you and that the shit they made in the lab is what's better. Okay, and a lot of people believe that, and I'm here to tell you that's not true. What I've noticed in my studies, and also just as a practitioner, the further you go away from nature, the more off balance you become. Okay, and this is the reason why I'm adamant about, people talk about eating real food, but most people don't know what real food is, especially this younger generation. Definitely don't know. Okay, and it's critical, absolutely critical. So when studies come out that say, oh, blueberries have all these antioxidants, and or you have to there's certain plants that are poisonous if you don't prepare it properly. Like I know, what is it, ackee in Jamaica? If you don't know how to pick it at the right time and prepare it properly, you could poison yourself. Indigenous people didn't have a laboratory to be like, you know what, if we don't pick this at this time and do this to it, we'll poison ourselves. How did they know that? Western science can then go look and analyze the compounds and say, oh, it's poisonous because of this. But people have been eating this for generations, for thousands of years. How did they know? They didn't have a scientific lab. They didn't have a science lab. So to me, when people ask questions, like, I'm listening to this lecture about women's like sexual health and womb health and cannabis. And this woman is like, we don't know this and we don't know that and blah, blah, blah. But there's tons of documentation from around the world, okay, from multiple countries, of women using cannabis in labor, okay, to help with labor pains, using it postpartum, using it for this, using it for sexual issues, using it for menstrual issues. There's tons of documentation of that. So there goes your answer. Just because you can't quantify it in your Western science method doesn't mean that it's some, it hasn't been confirmed yet. No, it has been confirmed by the fact that people have used it for generations. You just don't understand it yet. Your Western science way of analyzing don't understand it yet, and you might not never understand it. There's something that Native Americans call the Great Mystery. That for those who are Christian, I am not religious, but for those who are Christian, they say God works in mysterious ways. But to Native Americans, they talk about the Great Mystery. You could say it's the same thing, except they're not giving it to God. They're saying that in the universe, there's always the Great Mystery. No matter how much you think you understand something or try to understand something, there will always be this great mystery that you will never understand. Like for example, outer space. We don't understand that. There's like 1 million other galaxies besides ours. For all we know, we could be a freaking electron on somebody's shirt in another whole freaking dimension. We don't know. We don't know what's in the bottom of the ocean. Okay? We haven't invented the equipment to get to the bottom of the ocean that can sustain the pressure in the bottom of the ocean. I believe in sea monsters and mermaids. I don't know, right? Well, how come everybody talks about mermaids? You see it in like every culture. We don't know what the fuck is at the bottom of the ocean. We don't. Okay? We may not never know that because we're not from there. You know what I'm saying? So I'm saying that to say that, for me, and everything, like when I look at indigenous practices, like for example, like everybody ate liver. Or if you're of a certain age, you were given cod liver oil. You consistently see that throughout the world. And you know what? The Western science will tell you that liver is very high in vitamin A, and vitamin D, and zinc, and vitamin C, okay? And iron. Liver is a true multivitamin. That's what you'll find. You see people all around the world who consume raw milk and fermented dairy. Western science will tell you raw milk is high in probiotics and all kinds of enzymes, the lipase enzyme, the amylase enzyme, the lactase enzyme, vitamins A and D and calcium and glutathione, okay? And fats that are beneficial for your brain. Western science will tell you that. But the problem with Western science too is the politics in it. So a lot of times what we get told and what we hear from Western science is not always the actual truth, because their industry, big business has corrupted Western science, which is one of the reasons why I stopped wanting to be a scientist, and I didn't want to work for a hospital or a corporation, because I wanted to really teach people and tell them the truth. I don't want to be bound to the rules of the American Dietetic Association or the American Medical Association telling me what I can tell people, and I have to tell people this nonsense and give them poison to keep my job. I don't want to be a part of that. Okay? And so, and then with the scientists, a lot of the scientists, like, the average person is not reading scientific studies. You're getting your scientific facts from the news, from the media. And these people, the news and the media, they don't know anything about science. But you know what? They can't offend the advertisers. And who advertises on the news and the papers and the magazines? Who advertises? Food companies and drug companies. So you will never get the truth about nutrition and health from commercial media or anybody who is paid by these companies, okay? You won't. And so that's how the propaganda has been pushed. So the same way you have doctors now realizing that, cannabis is not this bad thing that we thought all this time. And it helps with all these ailments. And now they're starting to understand it and wanting to say it's okay when indigenous people have been using it forever. Well, same thing is true with food. They've been lying to you about that too. They have told you that cholesterol causes heart attacks. That's a lie. The fact of the matter is, the more cholesterol you eat, the longer you live. The fact of the matter is, the older you get, the more cholesterol you need. The fact of the matter is, your sex hormones are made from cholesterol, so that's testosterone, estrogen, progesterone. Your stress hormones are made from cholesterol. Your vitamin D is made from cholesterol. Okay? They tell you, oh, don't be in the sun, because all these lies, okay? But I'm going to say that Western science doesn't actually say that when you look at it. It's just what gets put out is the nonsense, So if you have people who actually read studies, I'm always researching and always going down these rabbit holes. Like, there's so much evidence for things, like there's so many herbs that like when people are talking about a cure for cancer and a cure for AIDS and a cure for this and there's all kinds of cures. This is not something hard or mysterious. There's all kinds of cures, and they know it, and there's scientific studies to back it up. And cures that nature gave us, not something that they made. Okay, so let me just tell you that. Understand, even when we talk about so-called STDs, which I say are contact diseases because you don't have to have sex to get any of them, right? But they've all been, minus HIV, which came from contaminated. See, sometimes I don't want to say too much in these videos because they always blocking my shit. So I'll be wanting to speak in code. Maybe I need to speak in Spanish. I don't know. But, there's tons of evidence that by reputable scientists, okay, world-renowned scientists, that HIV came from contaminated hepatitis B vaccines, okay? But besides that, all the other so-called STDs, they were around since before we were around. People have been having sex for past. And I talk about this in other videos. I'm not going to, go on a tangent about it now because I'll be talking for 2 hours. But I'm just saying, there's so much misinformation that has people afraid of natural shit. You know what I'm saying? In natural things. And I'm just going to say that, but having a background in Western science, I also hear people, especially these so-called pro-black people, these Afrocentric black people in America who obviously know nothing about Africans, okay? Like just now, I was in New York at this festival called Dance Africa that happens every year, and it's nothing about it is African. And Africans don't go to it, okay? It's really like some made-up stuff, okay? But the thing is that there's a lot of black people who put on dashiki and get themselves some kind of African name, like Sabi, okay? Who start talking all this, they didn't respect Sabi in Africa. If he had all of these, if he was such a master herbalist, you don't think that there's tons of herbalists in Africa. There's tons of herbalists in Asia. There's tons of herbalists in South America. And nobody welcomed him with open arms and respected him. He didn't get love when he went to Africa. You know why? Because the dude was a fraud. Okay? And I have a whole video where I talk about that. But, the fact of the matter is that these companies, they like to dismiss indigenous people while stealing their things, then getting a patent on it, because again, I told you I have a background in biotechnology. That's all about getting patents on genetics. So they can't put a patent on nature. Okay? They can't put, where's the video? It's on my YouTube page. It's called Sabi is a Fraud, I think. If you don't find it on my YouTube page, The Body Scientist 81, I recorded it 3 years ago. Just message me and I'll send it to you. But it's on my YouTube page, The Body Scientist 81. So yeah, these companies, they want to get a patent on stuff. So what they do is they'll genetically modify it so they can now patent it. And then they try to make it illegal. Okay, the natural stuff illegal, like cannabis. Okay, We've been using it forever, but they want to make laws over, oh, it has THC in it, so you can't legally sell it, or you can't legally use it, or you can't legally go from this state to that state with it. Well, it's a freaking plant and it came from nature. Then they want to start legalizing stuff, but you know why? Because they're getting patents on and making artificial versions of, okay? And always trying to tell us that we can't use things that we've been using for generations, and we have to use the stuff that they created because they make money off of that and they have their patents. Okay, people have no idea how sinister the medical industry, the food industry, and the health industry is. And a lot of these doctors and nurses are just soldiers for them. They've been brainwashed, and even if they realize that something's not true, they're not going to tell you because they spend too much money and time on their education, and they want to make money. Most people just care about the money. But the whole point of this video, I could go on for a long time, is that Western science has not confirmed anything that indigenous science that wasn't already known. Even when you talk about outer space, right? You have indigenous people who are talking about constellations and all kinds of things up in the sky before there were telescopes. They built structures that we can't figure out how to build now with all the technology that we have. Okay? So even when people say smoking is bad, it's like, okay, well, if smoking is bad, why is that something you see all throughout the world? People smoking things. So smoking can't just be bad, you know, like maybe it depends on what you're smoking. Yeah, maybe it depends on what you're smoking, but just saying smoking inherently is bad, no, because people have been doing that all throughout the world for generations, okay? Thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that. I mean, even like usually I save these videos to my other YouTube page, the Renaissance Amazon, because this page is trying to be scientific, but I couldn't help it because I'm just trying to tell you, like, if you ever wonder, like, if you're ever confused, like, I keep hearing conflicting things. Like, some people say meat is bad, other people say meat isn't. I'm so confused. It's not that confusing. Look around the world. Open your eyes and look around the world. Look all throughout Europe. Look all throughout Africa, Asia. Do they eat meat? Try traveling and being a vegan and see if you're going to have to. I remember when I went to Haiti in 2010, 2 months after the earthquake, and there was some girls that went on the trip that were vegans. And Haiti is not America, so you can't just go buy your vegan food from the supermarket or whatever, or the vegan restaurant. You have to eat what people cook for you. And they cook pork like damn near every day. But the vegans are sitting there eating bread. So you're going to starve yourself to death? But the Haitians, okay, these are some of the strongest looking people I've ever seen in my life. The kids to the elderly, strong, well-formed, and they were eating pork. When I went to Cuba, you can't survive. Cuba's another place. You can't go to Cuba and be like, I'm going to go to the supermarket and buy my own stuff to make. No, there is none of that in Cuba. Okay? In Cuba, it's not, because they haven't had a lot of American tourists. I mean, it might change. But because they haven't had a lot of American tourists, they're not trying to appeal to no goddamn vegans, okay? You're not going to go to Cuba and see a vegan section of the menu. No, but you know what you will see? Pork, and more pork. And a lot of ice cream. They have a huge ice cream culture, okay? And I remember when I was in Cuba, one of the times I was in Santiago, which is like on the other side of the island from Havana, and, you know, like, you can't find a lot of things that you can buy in stores, but there was this one store I stopped at, on the side of the road, and they had Nestle ice cream. And I remember picking it up and reading the carton. And you know what it said? It said, ice cream can be part of a healthy diet. And it was giving this whole paragraph about how ice cream is good for you. And I'm like, yo, I've been telling people that. People think I'm joking. 8 years ago, I made a video saying ice cream is a health food. And people think that I'm joking. I'm not joking. Ice cream, if you're eating good quality ice cream, real ice cream, it is a health food. And they knew that in Cuba. And Cuba has a serious ice cream eating culture. And so do Black Americans. Every Black American I know who's of a certain age, they grew up, I don't care if they're from the north or from the south, they grew up churning ice cream. Okay? Real ice cream. Not this crappy chemical stuff they have now. Alright? So, and when you look around the world, there's 4 things that you find in every culture. It's called, this one woman, she wrote this book called, what was the name of the book? Why Our Genes Need Traditional Foods. And her name is Catherine Shanahan. She's a medical doctor. She talks about the 4 pillars of health that you find throughout every culture in the world, and this is very valid. Number 1, every culture in the world eats meat on the bones, okay? They eat meat on the bones with the skin and everything. I remember when I was a kid, my parents would get a whole chicken. You know, they would clean out the gizzards or whatever the hell was in the inside. That used to gross me out. And, you remember that video of validate your ice cream eating? Good. Your ice cream addiction? Yep. As long as you're eating good ice cream, do not feel bad about it. It is definitely a health food. So yeah, I remember that. Like, used to buy whole chickens with the bones and the skin, and now you can't even find that. And now people are buying skinless chicken parts, skinless chicken breasts with no bones. That's not good for you. So every culture eats meat on the bones. Every culture ate organ meats. Every culture, every single group of people on the planet ate organ meats. Okay? Every group of people had fermented foods, whether it's fermented vegetables like kimchi, sauerkraut. I think Mexicans have cortado, Haitians have pickles. Whether it's fermented vegetables or whether it's fermented dairy, like yogurts. Like, look at India. They have all kinds of yogurt sauces and mango lassis and cheeses. I love cheese. I don't want to live without cheese. I don't want to live without cheese and ice cream, okay? I do all kinds of dairy. Like, right now, I got my little raw milk, okay? That I get from the Amish market in Chicago. I get raw milk in New York, you know. I love dairy, okay? And so, you know, in India, you got the cheeses, the yogurts, sauces, and stuff like that, and other places. Every group of people had fermented foods, whether it be fermented dairy or fermented vegetables, and they ate it with their meals. In America, traditionally, ketchup and relish were traditionally fermented foods. So you think about it, you putting ketchup and relish on your hot dog, that's fermented. You throw in some sauerkraut or something. Like, people always had fermented foods every single day. Okay, so another thing that every culture in the world had in common. And the 4th thing is that every group of people in the world consumed bone broth. Whether it be pork broth, you go to the Japanese ramen places, they live by pork broth. 90% of the broth that they use in the Japanese ramen places is pork broth. Okay? Whether it be pork broth, chicken broth, which is called Jewish penicillin, okay? Whether it is beef broth, goats, fish, whatever. The bones, that people took the bones of the animal and they made broth. Why is that so important? Broth is critical for your immune system. It is critical for your gut health. Critical for your bone health, your skin. Okay, so if you want to age beautifully, keep your stuff together, you want to have a strong immune system and not be getting sick, have a strong digestive system, bone broth. And every group of people made broth. So those are the 4 things that you found in common. But you know what you didn't find? Is salad. You know what you didn't find? Is green juice, okay? That shit is not good for you. If you want to destroy your thyroid, then eat that. So there's a lot of new age stuff where people are acting like they know more than the people that came before us. We don't. You don't, and we don't, okay? Because we are the sickest that we've ever been since we've been on this planet. They say that we're living longer now than we ever have been. That's a lie. And you know what proves that wrong? Anthropological research. Anthropological, archaeological, historical. Look at the primary documents for what the colonizers wrote, because the colonizers, they took some very detailed records of what they saw when they came to the Americas, okay? And the wonderful condition that people were in, and, you know, not just with looks, but what they were actually able to do, okay? They talked about it. So people need to activate their critical thinking skills, okay? Understand there's nothing new under the sun. And look at how sickly people are, okay? Everybody got something wrong with them. Like, this shit is normal, okay? Even like my eyesight. It's not normal to be having bad eyesight. Indigenous people could see. How could they hunt? How could they hunt animals, you know, and see things moving so far away, or seeing all these constellations in the sky if they had bad eyesight? They were so much stronger than we are. You know, now people do one little workout and they're like about to die. People have 1 or 2 babies and they're about to die. But not too long ago, women were having 10, 12 babies like it was nothing. So there's ways to measure. There are ways to measure what what we're capable of. You know, looking at how, you know, our conditions now is declining. You know what I'm saying? And the main thing is we've moved away from our traditional foods. If you don't believe me, check out the book. I think everybody should check out the book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration by Weston A. Price. Okay? Nutrition and Physical Degeneration by Weston A. Price. Because physical degeneration happens over generations. Okay? So our health has a lot to do with what our parents ate and what our grandparents ate. And now, the kids now, we're getting to a place where they're like 2-3 generations in and people eating crap. So now they got all these problems and they're sickly. And no offense, but I feel like a lot of people now who are like in high school, in their early 20s, they're not built the same. You know, like if you look at like hip hop music videos from the early 2000s, and you look at how beautiful the women that they had in those videos, how gorgeous they were, and how well formed they were. And this is before surgery. This is natural beauty. This is before everybody was getting surgery. Now, a lot of people that's like in their early 20s, they don't look like, they just look underdeveloped, like they're not built the same. And then they're getting all the surgery and they still look bad. But anyhow, can I say it again? Yeah, the book is called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration by Weston A. Price. Okay, I have it posted on my page, but it's probably some time back. But that book is important because this is an American dentist who went around the world in the 1920s to remote places. He measured a lot of things. He looked at people's traditional foods. He looked at what happened to them one generation after eating the white man's foods. And he was a white man. But the white man's foods was flour, sugar, and seed oils, which some people call vegetable oils, but they don't come from vegetables. That's the canola oil, the corn oil, the soybean oil. If you want to poison yourself and give yourself cancer and a heart attack, then cook with those oils, okay? That when he showed, when they started having roads and they started consuming those things, how their health declined. I mean, nobody has done this kind of research. Just check it out, you'll see. And, you know, another thing that's coming to my mind, it's interesting because, you know, I have a video, I study food systems, and I hear a lot of people are so quick to say that America has the worst food. Everybody thinks that an African country or a Caribbean country or somewhere in South America got better food than America, and that is absolutely not true. Okay? Like when I have been in Central America, South America, and the Caribbean, I have seen more processed crap than I see here. Okay? And there are certain things that I consume here that I can't find there. Like, I can never find grass-fed butter in Colombia. I can never find raw milk on my travels. I get that shit in like every state in America. At least here, we have a lot of processed stuff and bad quality stuff, but we also have a Whole Foods or supermarkets like that, or farmers markets where you can get better quality stuff. I just showed you my raw milk. I get that from an Amish market in Chicago. I get it delivered to me. An Amish market in Chicago that's run by Ukrainians. I get it from Muslims in New York. I get it from the Amish in Philly and Pennsylvania. I've gotten it in Atlanta at the farmers market, in Fort Lauderdale at the farmers market. But like whenever I'm in California, all over the supermarkets. But whenever I'm traveling abroad, I can't find that. Okay? And then it's interesting because I didn't realize, like I feel like it's like a soda, another thing. Like, people don't know, Mexico, they're number one in the world for drinking sugary drinks. And I've been out in Colombia at a restaurant and seen families out to dinner and they have a 2-liter bottle of soda on the table. And I think a lot of Americans has any kind of like consciousness know that soda is bad. And I don't see people drinking soda like that as much anymore in the U.S. like they did in the 90s or something, right? But you go to a lot of these Caribbean countries. I remember when I was in Jamaica, one of the things that I noticed is that I saw people drinking pineapple soda, not pineapple juice. Okay? I saw, when I was in Haiti, I never saw so much soda in my life as when I was in Haiti. I wanted some freaking coconut water. Could not find that. Everybody was trying to sell you soda. I've seen way more soda in those countries than I see here. Okay? And then, you know, it's interesting because there's something that came up recently. Like, I'm finding out that certain countries in Africa, they really think that babies are supposed to consume Similac and, like, you know, formula. You know, and they push that hard. And my mom said to me, I remember my mom telling me some years ago that in the 1950s, and this is the good thing about talking to elders. Mom said in the 1950s, American doctors had convinced women that formula was better than their breast milk. Okay, had convinced them. My mother's sister gave formula to all 3 of her kids. My mother breastfed my brother and I, you know, thank goodness, because we were born in the 80s. But, you know, but my mom said in the 1950s, no, they had did a good job convincing a lot of moms that formula was better. And now I see that in some African countries where they really think that babies need to be given formula. It's like, my mom is like, they are what we were in the 1950s, okay? And I see that with a lot of things when I travel. And I feel like in the U.S., this is why I'm big on educating. Because once, the U.S. will follow what the people want. So now you see grass-fed burger places everywhere. You're seeing grass-fed butter. You're seeing pasture eggs because more people are becoming aware of it. And the businesses follow. That's why the education part is so critical. Okay? Somebody asked me about lactose intolerance. Well, if you consume raw milk, you don't have to worry about that. I'm going to say as a nutritionist, everybody who told me they're lactose intolerant, 100% of them, when I ask them, have you been diagnosed with that? They tell me no. No, I haven't been diagnosed. It's just that when I drink milk, I get a stomachache. And I can tell them that 99.9% of the time it's because you're drinking bad milk, okay? You are drinking homogenized, pasteurized milk, all right? That's coming from sick cows. That's not the same thing as raw milk that comes from a farm. Cows are outside eating grass, and this milk was not homogenized and pasteurized. If you don't know what I'm talking about, because I don't want to go into a lecture about it, I have whole videos where I'm talking about raw milk. You can find it on my YouTube page and my Instagram. I know there's some of my stories right now. But in raw milk, you have the lactase enzyme. So you don't have to produce lactose because the lactase enzyme is there. Okay? And people use the term African Americans. It's so funny because I don't know any Africans that don't drink milk. Okay? Listen, the person that's asked me about milk, use your critical thinking skills. I'm going to encourage people to use your critical thinking skills. What have you heard me say in this video? Because I can talk about raw milk for 20 minutes. I don't feel like doing that because I have videos where I've already done that. And I just told you, use your critical thinking skills. Look around the world. Okay? Are there milk drinking cultures? Are there milk drinking cultures who are melanated? Since you want to say African American, are there milk drinking cultures in Africa? Because I can tell you there are. All of my African friends drink milk, and they just drink the regular milk from the supermarket, and it's not bothering them at all. And then Black Americans, okay? I don't like the term African American. I'll say Black American, but we were ice cream making culture. My dad's from Florida. My mom's from Pennsylvania. They grew up making ice cream. I met people from Louisiana. Doesn't matter where they're from. They're of a certain age. They grew up turning ice cream. So obviously everybody didn't have a problem with milk. We made macaroni and cheese. We made all these things. So obviously milk wasn't an issue. So perhaps your problem is that you're consuming bad milk. Have you ever consumed raw milk? Or are you only consuming milk from the commercial food industry? There's a difference between food from the farm, good quality food from healthy animals and crops. There's a difference between that and eating stuff from the commercial food industry. I have several videos where I explain that, so check it out. But this lactose intolerance nonsense, every Black person I know that's ever said that, they've never been diagnosed with it, and they tell me that they just don't feel good when they consume milk. And that's because they're consuming the crap from the supermarket. Okay? The Maasai in Africa live off of cow's blood and cow's milk. And 6 months prior to conception, the women go on a diet of mostly cow's milk. I have friends from Nigeria, from Cameroon, who grew up drinking milk. Okay? People from even the Caribbean, from Haiti and Jamaica, who grew up drinking milk. Lactose issues are usually genetically indigestible by only Asian people. Yeah, I don't know about that either, because I've seen some dairy in Asian places too. Like the Thai, they have Thai iced tea. They put milk in that. You don't see a lot of dairy in Asian food, which is why I'm not a big fan of Asian food, because I like my dairy. I'm bored if people don't use dairy. But again, raw milk has a lactase enzyme. The lactase enzyme. Okay, so you yourself don't need to produce lactose. And I see a lot of you writing, I heard this, I heard that, and you guys heard a lot of propaganda. Maybe you should go back and listen to what I said from the beginning. Employ your critical thinking skills. Oh, but before that, do some research, okay? Get the book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. Please stop saying in moderation. I hate when people say that. I hate that. I have a whole video about that too. What the hell? Most people don't even know what that means. No, that's a horrible thing to say, in moderation. What does that mean? No, There's certain things that you need a lot of, like butter and animal fats. Okay, there's certain things you need a little bit of. Okay, but in moderation. You're watching this while eating your corn on the cob smothered in Kerrygold. Yes, you cannot eat too much butter. You cannot eat too much butter. And the older you get, the more cholesterol you need, the more animal fats you need to keep your brain together, your hormones together, for men to keep their testosterone up. A man on a low cholesterol diet or taking statin drugs will probably have erection issues. So if you want your genitals to work until your old age, you need to get your cholesterol levels up. Okay? So, I'm hungry. I need to go eat. So I'm gonna end this video, but definitely check out my videos, because when I give the information that will help people be healthy, not just you, but your family, your kids, because understand that kids are in their developmental stages. If kids don't eat what they need to eat and they're not nourished to their fullest extent, they won't reach their fullest genetic potential. They'll be shorter than they're supposed to be, weaker than they're supposed to be, more sickly than they're supposed to be, and you cannot go back and redo that once they're grown. So understanding, proper nutrition, it can help your kids, it can help you live a longer life, your family, your parents, you know what I'm saying? But the videos I do on this topic, people don't watch that much. If I were to start dancing, I'll probably get like 5,000 views by tomorrow, because people are simple. But I'm just telling you, I have tons of videos where everything that I'm talking about, I have YouTube videos where I'm pointing this out. Okay? Yeah, I save all my lives. I'll save it here and post it. Okay, so somebody said that they have fibroid issues and that they don't think they can do raw dairy right now. Sometimes people do have certain things, like, I work with individuals. I do work with people on a one-on-one basis. You know what I'm saying? So there are exceptions to every rule. There's some people that have certain things going on. They might have certain metabolic issues where they can't metabolize certain things. But I will say that my experience with raw milk, the vast majority of people I know that think they couldn't drink milk, when they consume raw milk, it didn't bother them. But there's always exceptions. It's just like with cannabis medicine. There's people, there are people who, a small population of people who it might affect them differently. The skin moisturizers that I make. Most people that use my skin moisturizer, they rave about it, they love it, they're like, oh my God. But then I came across somebody who she's like, certain fats clog her pores, which didn't make sense. It was something that I had never heard of, but it gives her rashes. She's a small exception to the rule. So there's always that. And I don't feel like any of that stuff is normal. But sometimes people are, so there's like little individual things, all right? And so that might be true, that you can't consume it right now. But raw milk is definitely a superfood, okay? It's full of all kinds of things that keep your immune system up and, yada, yada, yada. So I do have videos talking about that. My opinion on fasting, I don't believe in it. I think that if anything, it's more meant for men than women. I definitely don't think women should fast. Usually fasting was done for spiritual purposes for men, because women, when we go through our menstrual cycles every month, we go into this state that's connected to spirit. Fasting was usually done for men to get to that state. Men would have to go by themselves in the mountain, in the woods somewhere, and fast so they can get to that state that women get to naturally every month, right? But if somebody must fast, if you really feel like you must fast, what I would tell you to do is do it with bone broth or do it with raw milk, okay? Because if I'm getting too hungry to answer these questions, but I just came back from the gym and I'm just like, whew, sorry. So I'm gonna do another video about this. I can't do it to my fullest potential because I'm too hungry and my brain's starting to shut down. But if you're fasting on water or juice, you're starving yourself. If you don't eat enough calories and protein to maintain your muscle, your body will eat that up. Okay, your body will eat your muscle. Then you start becoming skinny fat or just fat, right? And your metabolism is all thrown off. So if you're consuming broth, at least, you're consuming something with easy to digest amino acids and collagen that helps to cleanse you out. It helps to strengthen your gut, okay? And then you get some amino acids so that, it's not complete protein wasting. You're getting something. And then if you do it with raw milk, you're getting a whole bunch of beneficial bacteria, which is also good for your gut. You're getting all these probiotics. You're getting glutathione, you're getting vitamin C, you're getting vitamins A and D, you're getting important fats, and it's very easy to digest. So I would choose broth or raw milk over juice, because juice is nothing but sugar. And water is nothing but nothing. So those two things, I would never fast with that. But yeah, thank you for listening. I think I got my point across. It's just that Western science has never confirmed anything that indigenous science has not. Now, I'm a true believer in indigenous science, but I'm also a true believer in doing thorough research from many different sources and angles, being picky about who I even listen to, because a lot of people don't have that kind of discernment. They just be listening to and believing any damn thing, any damn person. So there's that, and then there's critical thinking skills, okay? So there's all those things, all right? So stop, if you have anybody in your family who's in their 90s, if I were you, I would talk to them and get as much information from them about what they did traditionally. Because even a lot of people now in their 90s, they believe in these Western doctors. And they think that the traditions of their parents and their grandparents wasn't right. And all that stuff is getting lost now. And pretty soon, no one's going to know what real food is anymore. And everybody's going to be sick as hell. Sick as hell. Okay, we're already kind of there. But oof, it's only going downhill. All right? Your grandmother's 96, get as much information from her as you can. And sometimes, because my grandmother passed at 95, but she was, and that was like, when was that? That was like 5 years ago? If my grandmother was born in 1921, so she was still alive, she would be 101 right now. But I think she died in 2016, right? She was 95. But at that point, she was believing Western doctors. She was believing, oh, I need to drink the diet soda, and I need to listen to the doctor with the margarine. So she believed that. She grew up sharecropping in Alabama. Good. Please. Okay, listen. Everybody, please, if you have people in your family here in their 90s, and they grew up sharecropping, they grew up farming, they grew up in the bush, whatever, please talk to them and gather as much information as you can, because the powers that be want you to forget that. The powers that be want you to not believe that they knew what they were doing. But they wouldn't have made it to 95 if they didn't. A lot of people now ain't making it to the 95 because you're eating all this commercial crap. And your grandmother who grew up in Alabama sharecropping, she was raising chickens and hogs and stuck with butter. Yes. People keep saying pork is bad. Let me tell you something. The longest living people in the world eat pork. The longest living people in the world are eating pork. And then let's talk about Western science backing that up. Pork fat is very high in vitamins A and D. Two vitamins that are critical for your immune system and so many other things. And you know what else? There's a worldwide deficiency. A worldwide deficiency. But the food industry wants to take vitamin A infused rice to India. They convince you to stop eating your traditional foods and then eat their Franken foods, where they put some fake vitamins back in. No, you wouldn't have a vitamin A and D deficiency if you ate your traditional foods, some goddamn butter and some pork fat, okay? Bacon or pork sausage, 2 or 3 times a week, yes. Every time they interview somebody who's the oldest person in the world, they ask them what they ate, they always say bacon. They didn't say turkey bacon, they said pork bacon, okay? And then you said, my grandmother lived to 96 and she loved her pork chops. She encouraged me to stop being vegan. I'm glad she did. Pork chops. I'm going to do a whole nother video about pork. I think I'm going to do it tomorrow. So stick around. Try to check me out tomorrow. I'm going to do a video about pork because I'm tired of the pork propaganda. The longest living, strongest people in the world eat pork. They eat tons of pork in Haiti, tons of pork in Cuba, tons of pork in Puerto Rico, but Puerto Ricans are really unhealthy and have an obesity problem, but I don't think that's because of pork. I think that's for other reasons, and I'll get into that. Tons of pork in Mexico. They eat tons of pork in Jamaica. If they're not Rasta, starving themselves. They eat tons of pork in Spain. Like in Spain, you think nothing else exists but pork. In freaking France, in Italy, in the Koreans, okay? The Japanese, the Polynesians. Is everybody dumb? That everybody's been eating pork? Okinawa are the longest living, healthiest people in the world. They cook with lard every single day. So, again, use your critical thinking skills. People aren't doing that. Look around the world. What have people been doing for generations? I'm so glad, yes, your grandmother ate pork chops. Yes. Pork chops and bacon will make you live a long life. Not salad Grandmother's not eating salad every day. No, pork chops, okay? Yes. So thank you all for sharing what you shared. I appreciate it. I love it. I'm going to save this video on my IG page, repost it to my YouTube channel that they're trying to delete. My YouTube channel is The Body Scientist 81. They're trying to delete it because I'm telling the truth about the chemistry of fats and natural immunity. And they're telling me that I'm violating terms, okay? So try to follow me there. I've created a backup page on YouTube. Anyway, I'll be on IG again tomorrow and talking about some more stuff. Thank you guys for sharing and listening. If you learned something from this video, please share it, please like it, and all that good stuff. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye.